Pop Culture Pastor.
All right, so welcome back. Welcome back to the show. We got to talk about this movie coming out on PureFlix.
Oh snap!
Yeah. Do you have Who has PureFlix?
Again, not I.
PureFlix is how would you describe this? This is like HBO for Christians? What the Hallmark channel for Christians? Or is that already for Christians?
That's already for Christians. Oh, okay. I would describe it as the Christian Netflix.
Okay. Christian Netflix. They have a new movie coming out called The Greatest Inheritance. The tagline on the poster says you can't take it with you.
Oh, snap.
Oh, wow. PureFlix, stop it. Stop it. It's important to say who's in the movie, though.
Okay.
Best known for his childhood role as Steve Urkel.
Jaleel?
The classic 90s sitcom Family Matters. Jaleel White.
We got Jaleel.
When did we get Jaleel White?
I don't know, but I'm naming it and claiming it.
Oh, of course you are. We've got Urkel.
Stefan Urkel.
Does he not like to be called Urkel? Because I think at one time he didn't like that. So maybe as Christians, we shouldn't refer to him Urkel, but like that's kind of his claim to fame. So I want to be like, we got Urkel.
I'm going to claim we have Stefan Urkel. So then he feels better.
This article says that Jaleel White remains a gifted and underrated comic actor.
I have said that for years.
Sure you have. Sure. It's co-starring Mina Suvari. Do you know who Mina Suvari is? She was in American Pie movies and American Beauty. She was in all the Americans.
Oh, okay. I know who we're talking about.
Yeah,
now.
She's like short blonde.
Yeah.
Was like a big deal for a while. And then kind of, I think she left like acting to maybe, to have a family. And now she's back. We have Mina Suvari.
Look at us.
Like, we just have all these bigger name actors coming to Christian stuff now. What is Kirk Cameron going to do? I mean, we're nosing him out.
Him and Sorbo can take a hike.
Him and Sorbo, we're kind of edging them out with more talented people like Steve Urkel.
I'm going to say at this point, Kirk Cameron's sister is a bigger deal than he is. And we have her, so.
Yeah, Candace Cameron. Yeah, she probably is a
beret.
Yeah, Kirk's more of a, nationalist Christian big deal now. He does his campfire chats with the American flag and stuff.
As one does.
Let's not talk about that. So, Cody, this movie coming out on PureFlix called The Greatest Inheritance, starring Jaleel White, Family Matters Steve Urkel. That's who he was best known for. Mina Suvari. It says this: the movie follows four estranged siblings as they embark on the scavenger hunt to find of a lifetime their mother's will, which is hidden somewhere on her property. This sounds crazy. Who does a scavenger hunt for a will?
Oh, that's great. You have given me an idea, PureFlix.
The person who finds the will inherits the estate. Now that's just insane. Who does that? Someone who's mentally torturing their children in death.
It is the pearl of great value.
Through many twists and turns, plus their mom's unexpected special rules, they are reminded of the hope that guided their mother's life and what their greatest inheritance really is. Jaleel White plays Mr. Shepherd, the catalyst for their quest. And the writer-producer, Alexandra Boylan, says The Greatest Inheritance is a film that everyone needs to see. That sounds like a special episode of Family Members. An episode you and your family cannot afford to miss.
Yeah.
Remember those?
I mean, literally, I'm really hoping it just leads to a Bible. And that's it.
I mean, look, all right, it's an intriguing plot. And if it's played for comedy, plus the encouraging message, I might be down to watch this.
Does someone have a PureFlix account I can borrow?
Dude, where do you even get that? Do you have to, is there an app?
I assume there's an app. Maybe they have that thing that Amazon has where you can do the watch party.
Yeah. We should check this movie out, and then review it here on the radio, on the morning show. Like the first two films in this, I guess this is executive produced by Bishop T.D. Jakes.
Oh, snap.
And several other people who probably are names I should know, but I don't.
TD's a name that everyone knows.
Yeah. So here you go. Some Christian entertainment starring Urkel and the girl from the American Beauty movie.
Yeah.
Like, did she get nominated for an Academy Award for that role?
I think everyone got nominated in that role or in that movie.
Yeah. I can't remember. Anyways, I might check this out. It'd be good to see Steve Urkel again, like a long lost friend who's grown up and is not actually that guy.
Did he do that?
All right, welcome back. Cody, we need to talk about something
Okay.
that is Star Trek related. This is amazing.
Live long and prosper.
Were you aware that William Shatner went to space? Like for realsies?
I knew he was supposed to.
Oh, okay. So yeah, he went with SpaceX, right? No, he went with Jeff Bezos's thing.
Yeah.
The Blue Origin space shuttle. And he did it on October 13th, 2021.
American Canadian hero, Billy Shatner.
If we're not going to call him Captain Kirk, I'm leaving. He's Captain Kirk. He always will be. He's a wonderful actor. Don't get me wrong.
He is the face of Michael Myers.
That's true. That's true. He didn't even know that. Anyways, that's a side note. He found out later, like recently, and enjoyed it because William Shatner is a delightful person.
Yes.
But I want to talk about this. He actually went into space, and this is going to be really interesting. He doesn't have the reaction that he thought he was going to have. And boy, this is deep, deep stuff here and thoughtful things. And I just want to talk about it with you because I know that you'll probably be in the same place I am with it, where I'm like, oh yeah, well, that does make sense, doesn't it?
The world isn't flat.
Well, no. Sorry, flat earthers. He actually mentions the curvature of the earth in what he's about to say. But I want to get into this. I want to talk about William Shatner. I want to talk about him going to space. And in particular, I want him to talk about his expectations versus the reality and the feelings he had once he was out there. Because I think, Cody, if I asked you, what do you think you would feel like in space? Like, what do you think that feeling would be like?
Oh.
I think most people would describe it as a freeing thing.
Mm-hmm.
I am free to explore the cosmos. And there would be something about that we think would be immensely freeing, but that is not the reaction that William Shatner, 90-year-old William Shatner, had.
Because, like, in my mind, I would be weightless, but, like, not only physically, but metaphorically. Like, all those burdens are off me. I'm out in the great unknown.
Leaving those chains on Earth.
Yes.
Well, not necessarily. Or you can use the metaphor of the chains, saying maybe you were designed for those chains and it doesn't feel right to be removed from them.
Ooh.
Which I think Jesus said some things like that.
This is what we call a tease.
This is a tease. So we're talking about William Shatner, and he's got a book coming out. They printed an exclusive excerpt from his new book, William Shatner's new book, Boldly Go, Reflections on a Life of Awe and Wonder.
That's a good title.
First of all, can we just stop right there and say how healthy of a mindset to be a human being who wants to be awed and be in a sense of wonder? This is probably why Bill Shatner is a good guy.
Billy Shatner.
Yeah. So anyways, it's from his forthcoming book. He, in this excerpt, talks a little bit about going into space on Jeff Bezos's Blue Origin space shuttle on October 13th, 2021. He describes a lot of the lead up, being 90 years old.
That's kind of old to go into space.
He describes like people around him saying, everything's going to be fine. Don't worry about it. It's all okay. How easy it is for people like that aren't going into space to say that to people who are. He talks about the preparation and just kind of being scared, Like he says at one point they show him a safe room in case there's an explosion. And he's like, well, at least they thought of that. He said how he couldn't stop thinking about the Hindenburg on the day of the launch. But then he finally gets around to the launch. And he talks about the gravitational forces, the G's. He said there was an instrument that told him how many G's they were experiencing as they were rising through the air. And he said at 2 G's, I tried to raise my arm and I could barely do it. At 3 G's, I felt my face being pushed down into my seat. And I thought to myself, I don't know how much more of this I can take. Am I going to pass out? Will my face melt into a pile of mush? How many G's can my 90-year-old body handle? So all this is going through his mind. And then all of a sudden, relief. No G's. 0. That weightlessness that you said something about was what he was feeling. And all of a sudden he's floating. And I think as you're reading that and listening to someone describe that, you're thinking, oh, that's got to be real freedom.
Although in the movies, you really don't have a lot of control.
No. Peeing becomes a lot harder.
It does.
I don't know why that was the first thought in my mind. But he's describing this idea and how he was scrambling to get out of his harness and how they're floating around. And he describes how the younger folks with him all went into like the somersault and enjoying the effects of weightlessness, but he wanted to get to a window. You see, he had this expectation of what his feelings were going to be. And he looked down at Earth and he could see like the hole in the atmosphere that the spaceship had punched through. Like he could still see the remnants of the hole in the oxygen layer that the ship had come through, and there was a wake trailing behind where they'd just been. He said he turns his head in the other direction to stare into space. He said he's always loved the mystery of the universe because, of course, he has. He's Captain Kirk.
He is.
And he's thinking about stars exploding years ago, their light traveling to us years later, black holes. He's thinking galaxies and all of these things. And he said when he looked in the opposite direction out into space, do you know what he felt? Do you know what he saw?
Nothing.
He said there was no mystery, no majestic awe to behold. All I saw was death, cold, dark, black, emptiness.
Ew.
Oh my goodness. What he is about to say, if you're a believer and you believe there's a certain fundamental existence in place, what he's about to say is going to make all the sense in the world to you. You're going to listen to him and go, yeah, William. Yeah, Captain Kirk. That's it. You're all over it. And when we come back, I'll share it with you. So William Shatner, Captain Kirk, goes out into space for real as a 90-year-old on Jeff Bezos' ship. He describes the stress on the body of actually getting to space where he thought it was never going to end and that his 90-year-old body wasn't going to hold up. He describes the feeling when it all stopped. And he described it as relief, weightlessness, and he's excited to look out the window. He looks back at the earth, and then he looks the other direction. Cold, dark, black emptiness. I'm going to read directly what he says here. It was unlike any blackness you can see or feel on earth. It was deep, enveloping, all-encompassing. I turned back toward the light of home. I could see the curvature of earth, the beige of the desert, the white of the clouds, and the blue of the sky. It was life, nurturing, sustaining life. Mother Earth, he says, and I was leaving her. Everything I had ever thought was wrong. Everything I had expected to see was wrong. I had thought that going into space would be the ultimate catharsis of that connection I had been looking for between all living things, that being up there would be the next beautiful step to understanding the harmony of the universe. In the film Contact, when Jodie Foster's character goes to space and looks out into the heavens, she lets out an astonished whisper. They should have sent a poet. I had a different experience because I discovered that the beauty isn't out there. It's down here with all of us. Leaving that behind made my connection to our tiny planet even more profound. It was among the strongest feelings of grief I had ever encountered.
Okay, yeah, that's like the exact opposite of what I was expecting him to say.
Yeah, it's the exact opposite of the way we think we'd feel if we got to go to space. But understand, this is not an abnormal feeling. It's called the overview effect. And it's not uncommon among astronauts. Yuri Gagarin, Michael Collins, many others. Essentially, when someone travels to space and views Earth from orbit, a sense of the planet's fragility takes hold. Now, I'm going to change the wording because I don't think that was the article trying to describe to you from Variety, trying to describe to you that effect. And it leads, if you keep reading, it leads William Shatner to the same conclusion, the fragility of Earth. He goes on like an environmentalist bent, which, by the way, as Christians, we should not be uncaring about the environment. We have been named stewards of this world that God has given us, and we should want to take care of it. But that's not what I want to get into.
Quit punching holes in our atmosphere.
Gosh, Jeff Bezos. But I would change that wording they used because I believe, while I think it makes sense that we would think of the fragility of the Earth when we go into space and look back at it, because of course we're going to think of fragile because the Earth balances on decimal points. It's perfect math. Creation is perfect math. The Earth is a situation that is a perfect math on perfect math on perfect math on perfect math, and a decimal point, millimeters anywhere going awry would mean the end of life. It is perfection, and that looks fragile to us. But to God, it looks like perfection. It's perfect design. So when we see that, of course, it scares us. And Bill Shatner doesn't even realize, this is the awe and wonder you've been looking for, Bill.
I guess I'd classify Bill's feeling as surrealism. And I also think that there's a huge thing when you go into, I guess, the vacuum of space and you leave everyone behind. Even though you have people with you, I mean, you're going from 7 billion people to like 5. And
you're removing yourself from the connection you were born to have.
Yeah. And how surreal that would feel, just knowing if something goes awry up here, I'm dying by myself.
Yeah. Yep.
All these people down there won't even know.
And the crazy thing is these are the sort of observations that are leading a lot of scientists to come to conclusions like, you know what? We could be living in a simulation. We could be living in the Matrix or a creation of someone else's design, right? Which is crazy when they see that, because they see they're going off the data that they're being fed, which is, this is too perfect. It has to be designed. That's the conclusion they're left with. And then we're like, yeah, that's it. You're all over it. We are living in someone else's creation. Our reality that we think is reality is a preconceived, set up reality that we're just reacting to in real time. It's amazing that humans, we don't have to have all the knowledge to stumble upon the real reality of that we live in.
Yeah.
And it's stunning and amazing to me that even in this awe and wonder we can have, even when we can do these amazing things that humans have taught themselves how to do, like go to the cold death of space and look back upon the Earth, we get these feelings. We wouldn't label them as religious. They're not religious feelings, but they always point to a faith feeling. Like, yeah, you're being led to the only reality that there ever was.
And like the feeling that you're super small and that there's something bigger and grander than you out there.
And then I get, like, if there's people who are non-believers who are listening to this, how that can be a scary thought. It can be a scary feeling. Well, then that's when I would invite you to read the Gospels. Read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Forget about the rest of the Bible for now. I know if you're a non-believer, the Bible is scary. You think it's like mind control, or you think it's a political tool, which, hey, some humans use it as such. And that's not great. But I promise you, you read the Gospels and you see who Jesus is. Like, this will be a different experience for you. And then you put it into place with these feelings like William Shatner describes when he went to space. And you start to understand things a little better. You understand that there is this fixed reality that we live in. You understand that this reality almost has to be designed. That nothing about our universe is random. Like, this is the part I don't understand, is how people can come to the conclusion of randomosity, because science doesn't even come to that conclusion.
Yeah. There's just so much that, I mean, I don't know how you can land much further outside of either a faith-based perspective or we're in a simulation. Yeah. If you're not labeling it faith.
Take it from Captain Kirk. Life resides here. Life. And what he said was right. What he observed, beautiful life, giving life. Do you know what beautiful life that is given is? That's love. We know that as humans, that when we love, out of our love comes life. This is what we intrinsically believe. Captain Kirk is right, because he's always right. He's Captain Kirk.
I mean, most of the time he's right.
He boldly saw what many people have seen before him, that God is real. Cody, did you know today is National Read a Book Day?
I did not know that, but it would have been helpful if they had promoted that holiday when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Because, like, I have this class project that I have to do, like, an analysis over a book character.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked my wife for suggestions of which characters to do. And so she just starts listing off a bunch of books. And I'm like, nope, haven't seen that. Never heard of that.
Haven't seen it. I haven't seen the movie based on that book. Sorry, I can't do that one.
I watched the movie based on that one. And I just keep going off on a tangent about, nope, haven't read it. Nope, haven't seen it. Nope.
So what you're saying is you're not really a book reader.
Like, I have read some books, but compared to my wife, it was atrociously small amounts of books.
Look, I can remember in high school, you assigned me to read Of Mice and Men, and I'm watching the movie. I'm not reading that book.
I will say the movie did a good job, almost verbatim, line by line, of what the characters say in the book. So
yeah, it served me pretty well, that one.
Yeah, that was a good book / great movie. Give me more John Malkovich and Gary Sinise.
But some of them, they're not doing the trick. Like, apparently, you couldn't watch Demi Moore's The Scarlet Letter and need to take a test on Nathaniel Hawthorne's Scarlet Letter. That didn't work out too well.
No.
I don't know. I have an affinity for reading, but I notice it's like I'm very select in what I want to read, and I actually enjoy, like, nonfiction.
That was my issue, because I'm like, I've read a ton of biographies, I've read a ton of nonfiction works, but yeah, no, not the fiction. I'm limited.
Yeah, and that seems to be my problem as well. So, Cody, what would you say is your favorite nonfiction book you've ever read? While we're talking about it, because I was going to ask you about fiction, but let's do nonfiction first for this holiday. What is National Read a Book Day?
National Read a Book
Which,
Day.
first of all, are there people that read a book in a day?
Oh, yeah. No, my wife has read, like, big, legit chapter books in a day.
God bless them. I'm too ADD for that. I can't do that.
And sometimes I want to say she's read a couple books in, like, an evening of just getting off work and then being like, you know what, I'm going to read. And then, boom.
She just reads the whole thing. That's amazing. Good for her. I do envy people like that.
I don't know how she does it. / I get too distracted by video games.
I get too distracted by my phone. Okay, so what's your favorite nonfiction book you've ever read?
I mean, as a pastor, I have to go with the Bible.
Well, come on, normal rules apply. The answer can't be the Bible. Any other book.
Bible.
Obviously, we've committed our lives to ministry, and thus we love reading the Bible. That's the answer to the desert island question, right? You're stranded on a desert island. What one book? You can keep one book with you. Of course, our book's going to be the Bible. But in this, pretend that I'm asking the question, it can't be the Bible. What book are you taking? Nonfiction.
So, I mean, there were several Craig Groeschel books that I really enjoyed. Mm-hmm. Again, I'm getting into the pastoral side of me.
No, that's okay. But, that counts.
So Divine Direction I thought was really good, and Hope in the Dark by Craig Groeschel were really good. I did enjoy what was the name of?
Because I would bring up a book that's sort of ministry related. I would say Love Does by Bob Goff.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that book.
And then there is a documentary about Oswald Chambers, the guy that wrote My Utmost for His Highest, that devotion. There's a good documentary about his life. And
yeah, you're getting back into TV stuff again. That documentary is moving pictures.
Yeah, well, a nonfiction biography. There you go.
Okay.
I do prefer the TV. So
my favorite nonfiction book of all time would be a biography. It's called The United States of America versus Cassius Clay, Muhammad Ali's Greatest Fight.
I feel they made a documentary about that.
I'm sure they will. I'm sure they did. There's probably been several, but this specifically focuses on the civil rights movement and the case of Muhammad Ali not wanting to go to Vietnam and everything entailed in that. And it's just so good. It really takes a deep dive into like how that mingled with the civil rights movement, how Muhammad Ali, that wasn't really his intent. He just really was trying to adhere to what his religious beliefs at the time were, which is that he was a pacifist, which sounds weird because he got paid to beat people up.
Passing a fist.
But he obviously drew a line on taking life. And felt very seriously about it. And that was his whole intent was, I'm not going to cross that line. And so, but the civil rights movement, it sort of engulfed him and he became a very important figure in it.
He did.
And so it's just a great book and it accounts all that really well. I like nonfiction books, especially historical, just like kind of report to me what's going on in the context. I don't really want it to lean a certain way. Like the book doesn't go out of its way to make the government look bad or to make him look good.
So does it talk about his relationship with Malcolm?
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's all in there. And there's a lot of like eyewitness, people that were close to him giving information, like Harry Belafonte, which wasn't knowledgeable enough to know that he was a big guy in the civil rights movement, but they get him to say a lot of things in this book. Anyways, it's just a good book. You should look it up.
Also another one that I enjoyed was Jim Morrison, Life, Death, Legend. It was a good biography.
The Doors.
Yes.
Yeah. It's probably sad though, isn't it?
It ends with death.
Yeah. Doesn't it always? So this is probably an easier question. What's your favorite fiction book or books you've ever read?
Okay, so I'm going to have to ask a question because Leah, when we were going through this, finding a fictional character to do a case study on, I asked her if she thought I could do graphic novels. Mm-hmm. And she's like, no, Cody, those aren't real books.
How dare her?
That cut deep.
It did.
Too deep to be.
I read The Watchmen at KU.
Exactly.
Yeah. She's not living in the now.
She isn't. So I will say the book series that got me into reading more.
Left Behind.
No. It was Harry Potter. The complete opposite direction. So
I think a lot of people. So my oldest daughter loves to read. She'll just sit down and read books, and she started with Harry Potter, and I'll be forever thankful for that because it's not like I think she likes Harry Potter and she's reread the whole series. I think, but it's not like she's a super fan. She isn't like there's not Harry Potter stuff all over her room or anything.
Yeah, I enjoy Harry Potter, but I'm not going out of my way for Harry Potter.
Right. And so I really appreciate that story in really implanting this love for reading in my daughter. I'll be thankful and grateful for that. So yeah, and I've heard that from a lot of people.
So by the time they start making the movies, I have read the first 5 books. Mm-hmm. So then I'm not like, well, I'm going to wait it out.
Yeah, and it's this generation's it's their version of what I'm about to say. So I'm in 9th grade, and I'm not much of a book reader. I'm a comic book reader. I grew up collecting comics, and comics were my escape because, reality often was disappointing. And
spoilers.
And so I loved Marvel comics in particular, and I just read and read and read. And then in 9th grade, I had to, you can go a while without actually reading a book. Even there are ways, by watching movies or stuff. And I'd read a couple books in middle school. We read Animal Farm by George Orwell, which I liked. I dug that. I'd read Watership Down. I don't know why all my books I read had animals acting, like talking and stuff like that, but maybe that was just stuff I liked. And then in 9th grade, I walk in the library. I get to pick my own book, and I was like, okay, I don't know anything. I don't know that much about books. What do you think a guy like I love comic books, librarian, I'm in your hands, give me a book. And she puts into my hands The Fellowship of the Ring.
That was the second book series I've read.
And from the moment I cracked that book open, I was just gone. I was in that world. I have never read books so fast that I did the Lord of the Rings series. And I think I cried when it was over. And then I found out there was The Hobbit, which I could read, the prequel, right?
Yeah.
But man, I was totally, those books, I was totally just like escaped into that world.
And now you can watch The Ring of Power.
I am. And we'll talk about that someday on the podcast, I think, maybe, because I've liked it. It's again, when it's about the escape into this world, I've just enjoyed the visuals. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they're taping that series in New Zealand, like where Peter Jackson filmed, but it looks and feels like Middle Earth, and I've just enjoyed every second of it.
Yeah, I loved the Lord of the Rings series. That was a great one to read.
And now it works. And now that I'm a pastor, it means even more to me because I can go back and reread and I can see Tolkien's faith playing out through the story. It's much more subtle than his friend C.S. Lewis's Narnia books.
Yes.
Which are kind of right out there. But it's more subtle in The Lord of the Rings, but still very relevant and good.
The Screw Tape Letters. That was a good one by C.S.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I also enjoyed a book I read recently that I'm going to classify as a real book. And the book I chose for my project, it's a Stephen King book called Revival. Mm-hmm. It's about a minister.
I'm betting he's not on the up and up.
No.
Stephen King. Is he bad?
Well, he starts off good. Tragedy strikes, his wife and kid pass away.
Oh,
and
this sounds like a downer.
Then so it really technically follows this family that goes to the church that the pastor's at, but the pastor plays a role throughout this guy's life from being a little kid up through like 50s and 60s. Mm-hmm. It's interesting.
Yeah. You know what's weird is another one of my favorite books, like probably my second favorite fiction book, would be a Stephen King book. And people think of Stephen King, they think of like hardcore horror. But my second favorite fiction book is his book, and it's one called The Stand, which is actually about a pandemic and about the forces of good and evil. And it's about as close to religious as you'll see Stephen get.
Yeah. And I'll say that it might be a more accurate depiction of Revelation than Left Behind.
Yeah.
I'll say it. I'm naming it and claiming it.
Don't watch the TV made from that. Just read the book.
I evidently need to read.
Yeah, you need to read The Stand. So good. So yesterday was Columbus Day or Indigenous Peoples Day, depending on what side of the political aisle you're on. which is the only way I can describe that.
I call it a federal holiday.
I call it the worst day of the year. Legitimately, Cody, it's my least favorite day of the year. I just can't stand it. It's so... We have such a biased view of history. We view history whichever way serves us in the moment the best. And it's just horrible. I just don't like it. I don't like that day because I know people are going to argue all day with terrible arguments, by the way. Like, they're just always the worst historically inaccurate arguments all the way around. I'm talking like conservative and liberal. It's just like, we don't want to even, introduce the idea that humans are complex. And it's just really obnoxious to me.
Yeah.
You study history long enough, and this whole idea of good guys and bad guys, like the fact that we haven't come around to the idea that this just doesn't work when discussing humanity is laughable. You have the history we were taught when we were growing up where the U.S., we're the good guys all the time. And sometimes we're the good guys. Sometimes we're not. Sometimes it's nuanced. Sometimes, like, there's greed in every situation. Humanity has greed. But then, we figure out that the history we were learning wasn't great. And we go to the completely other side where it was all hate-based. Everything was hate-based in the forming of this country. And we just came over here and oppressed the poor indigenous peoples who were obviously just living in a utopia, who never killed each other or did anything like, sacrifices or things like that. Yeah. I just don't like it. It's very upsetting to me to not just look at humanity as humanity in order to win a political argument. Like, they only care in that they want their name of the holiday to be the one that sticks, I guess.
Yeah. For me, I don't want it called Columbus Day, but that's just because he actually didn't land in this country. Yeah. And like 1,000 other people made it here before he did. Mm-hmm. But that's just because I don't think that he did much.
Now, to be clear, I'm way more okay with indigenous holidays celebrating indigenous peoples than Columbus. Not because Columbus was some kind of terrible monster, but just because he was a dude who didn't even do anything. In fact, didn't do anything he thought he had done. I don't know. The holiday just in general makes me like, ugh. I always remind myself, I always forget to remind myself to stay off social media yesterday. But then I always forget. I'm always trolling around on social media and I run into it. I'm like, ugh, I need to set a reminder, man.
It happens.
Just brutal. Hey, everybody, it's Dave. Thank you for listening to our Radio Leftovers podcast. Everything you just heard is from our morning radio show on KFEX 93.1. You can hear us every morning between 8 a.m. and noon. Those are Central Standard Times on www.kfex931.com. If Christian music's your jam, go ahead and listen. You won't be disappointed. Thank you so much for listening. Coming up this week, our Friday pod, the pod that drops on Friday, our main episodes, is going to be a Be Kind Rewind episode. So stay tuned for that. I'll let you know what movie we're going to be rewinding to on our social media, so you can react to that and have conversations and whatever. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure and subscribe and give us reviews and ratings and share us. All of that helps to get more people to listen and for us to do bigger and better things. Thank you so much to you guys. We love you guys that listen, and we'll see you soon.